The truth about Dark Chosen One's power that builds and breaks shadow realities. There's a moment in every Dark Chosen One's life when the veil lifts. It doesn't happen with flashing lights or dramatic music, but it happens subtly, like a glitch in reality, a silence that suddenly feels too loud, a conversation that echoes in the soul rather than the ears. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You were marked. And that mark? It wasn't a punishment. It was a contract. You agreed to carry a power that few even believe exists, let alone understand. And that power is the ability to build and break shadow realities. Let me explain.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
All of us are born into a collective illusion, what most call the world. But Dark Chosen Ones, we're not born to fit into it. We're born to disrupt it, to fracture it, to question it so deeply that it begins to collapse under our gaze. And that's terrifying for us and for everyone around us. Because when you carry the frequency of truth in a world built on lies, you don't just shine a light, you shatter illusions. You bend timelines. You dissolve false identities. You walk into rooms and people feel things they buried for years. They don't know why they're uncomfortable around you, why they react so strongly. But you do. You see it. You feel it. You've always known that your presence alone changes things. But here's the catch. It doesn't feel like a gift at first. It feels like a curse. Because before you can build new worlds, you're forced to walk through the collapse of the old ones. You lose friends, jobs, relationships, sometimes even your own sense of self. Everything you thought was stable begins to unravel. That's not failure. That's the activation. The system around you senses your power, and it begins to test you, not to destroy you, but to refine you. You're being forged in the fire of forgetfulness, and the moment you remember who you are, reality shifts. Now, let's get deeper. What are shadow realities? They are fragmented timelines created by trauma, fear, and collective suppression. They look like normal life, but they're not. They are energetic prisons disguised as comfort zones. Most people live in them without ever knowing. They follow scripts: go to school, get a job, get married, retire, die. But none of it feels alive. It feels hollow, repetitive, like a loop. That's because it is a loop, a reality created from unprocessed shadows. These realities feed on conformity. They feed on silence, and they fear the ones who can see through them. That means they fear you. Dark Chosen Ones have the rare capacity to not only pierce through shadow realities, but to dismantle them. Your words, your presence, your choices, they act like viruses in corrupted code. You destabilize what isn't real. And that's where the true power begins, not in what you do, but in what you undo. You don't just manifest, you unmask. And this is the first layer of your power. You're not here to be positive or raise the vibe. You're here to call out what's fake, and to uproot what's been buried, to break systems that were never designed for your freedom. But with great power comes a deeper test. Will you lose yourself in the shadows you're meant to dismantle? This is the trap. The system doesn't just resist you, it tries to absorb you. It offers you distractions, rewards, temptations. It dangles approval like bait. It offers you platforms, praise, and even spiritual identity, but only if you play by its rules. The moment you start building your power, the moment you realize your ability to shift energy, to influence people, To bend synchronicity, that's when the shadow starts whispering. Use it for yourself. Take the shortcut. You deserve it. But the truth is, you didn't come here to dominate. You came here to liberate. And that means you must first liberate yourself from ego, from illusion, from the need to be understood. You have to be willing to be the villain in someone else's story. You have to be okay with being misunderstood, misquoted, even hated. Because your presence alone will trigger people's shadows, and they'll blame you for what they're not ready to see in themselves. So how do you survive this stage without losing your soul? You become radically honest. You develop inner silence. You learn to sit in the unknown without rushing to fix it. You realize that your power isn't in what you speak, but in what you withhold until the moment is right. You stop reacting and start resonating. You begin to feel when a room is lying to itself. You know when someone's words don't match their energy. You start to see the architecture behind people's masks. And instead of calling it out with judgment, you simply exist in a frequency that makes the masks fall away on their own. You begin to realize that your very presence is a frequency disruptor. You don't need to push, you need to be. And the more you align with your own inner truth, the more shadow realities collapse around you. Not because you attack them, but because they cannot coexist with your vibration. And that's when things get real. You'll start noticing people either magnetized to you with a hunger they can't explain, or they flee from you without knowing why. Your energy becomes too honest, too sharp, too uncontainable. And that's the point. You're not here to be digestible. You're here to be undeniable. You're here to be the glitch in the matrix, the frequency that doesn't fit, the living reminder that there is more, that there is truth, and that no illusion, no matter how beautiful, can survive in the light of your awareness. So I ask you now, are you still trying to fit into a world you came to disrupt? Are you still asking for permission to be what you already are? Because the truth is, the moment you stop apologizing for your shadow-born power, the moment you stop shrinking to accommodate other people's comfort, you begin to build new realities. Real ones, free ones. And that's what the next part is all about. The blueprint of the unseen, how dark chosen ones construct timelines that others can't even perceive. Once you've stopped asking for permission to exist in your fullness, a new door opens, not in the physical world, but within your consciousness. You begin to sense it like a vibration before it becomes form, like a faint signal cutting through static. This is the blueprint, the unseen map. It's not written in ink or stone, it's encoded in your energy, your instincts, your knowing. And this is where most people get lost, because the world taught them to trust what they can see. But you were born to build what can't be seen. You were designed to operate on a level that others don't even believe exists. This is the second stage of the dark chosen one's path, not just breaking shadow realities, but constructing new ones. And this isn't about manifestation in the Instagram sense. It's not about vision boards and high vibrations. It's about creating timelines from frequency, from alignment, from the raw material of your soul's truth. Because when a dark chosen one aligns with their core resonance, they don't just influence reality, they rewrite it. But here's what most people don't understand. Timelines are not linear. They're not just a straight line from past to future. They're branches, fractals, infinite potentials, all coexisting, waiting for you to choose, not with your thoughts, but with your embodiment. Every time you act from your truth, even if it terrifies you, you shift timelines. Every time you say no to something hollow, and yes to something soul-aligned, even if it makes no logical sense. You collapse a false path and construct a new one. That's what being a dark chosen one means. You're not here to follow maps. You're here to write them. You're not here to walk paths. You're here to burn them into existence. But this is where the test sharpens, because no one will validate you while you're doing it. In fact, it will look like failure. You'll lose things, comfort, relationships, opportunities. You'll be asked to keep building even when nothing around you reflects what you're constructing. And that's the final proof. If you can hold the blueprint in the dark, you are no longer just a participant. In reality, you are its architect. Let's go deeper. Every time you follow your highest resonance, not your fear, not your ego, but your frequency, you create a ripple in the quantum field. And that ripple becomes a corridor, a new potential that didn't exist before. That's why people don't understand you. You're not choosing from the options on the table. You're building a new table. You're speaking a language reality has not yet learned how to interpret. And that's why it feels like no one gets you. Because they're still decoding the old blueprint, and you're already living the next one. And here's the hidden truth. The blueprint is not just about your life. It's about the collective. Every time you build something real from your truth, a business, a relationship, a piece of art, a decision, you're not just changing your own path. You're anchoring a new frequency on Earth. You're making it easier for others to find it. Because you didn't just come here to awaken. You came here to become the signal for others still trapped in the illusion. But this isn't glamorous. It's not a viral moment or a grand announcement. It's subtle. It's choosing silence when the world wants noise. It's walking away from what feeds your ego to protect what feeds your soul. It's facing the void without flinching. Because that void, that emptiness you feel in between timelines, that's not the absence of something. That's the womb of something new. And only those who can sit in that sacred space without rushing to fill it, only they can truly build what lasts. So how do you stay aligned with your blueprint when no one else sees it? You remember who gave it to you. You didn't get this vision from a coach, a book, or a trend. You got it from the fire in your chest. The dreams that won't let you sleep. The knowing that stalks you in silence. And that knowing didn't come to tease you. It came to lead you. You're not crazy for wanting more. You're not unrealistic for refusing to settle. You're not arrogant for trusting your own soul above the noise. You're simply attuned to a future that hasn't arrived yet, and you've been chosen to bring it here. So I ask you now, with no fluff, no filters, no spiritual performance, are you building your life from fear or from frequency? Are you choosing what's familiar or what's alive? Are you willing to be misunderstood, even by everyone you love, just to stay loyal to your truth? Because that's the blueprint, not a plan, not a formula, not a 10-step method. It's a frequency, and once you find it, once you feel it, once you live it, there's no going back. You're no longer just waking up. You're waking the world up with every breath, every step, every choice. The collapse code, why the power to break realities, is the key to restoring wholeness. The most misunderstood aspect of the dark chosen one's path is destruction. They call you chaotic. They say you're intense, too much, too deep. But they don't see what you're really doing. You're not destroying for the sake of destruction. You're collapsing what was never real. You're tearing down the scaffolding of false identities, lifeless systems, empty routines, and inherited lies. And while that might look violent to the untrained eye, it is, in truth, the purest act of love. Because until the illusion collapses, the soul cannot breathe. It cannot rise. This is the collapse code, your unique spiritual signature that destabilizes whatever is built on fear. You don't just see through things, you shake them. You walk into structures, relationships, institutions, belief systems, and your very presence begins to unravel the threads holding them together. Not because you're negative, not because you're broken, but because your frequency carries a divine intelligence that refuses to participate in anything false. And that refusal is your genius. It is what makes you dangerous to the system and sacred to the soul. But here's the paradox. This same power that breaks illusions also breaks you. You can't wield it without being transformed by it. You can't collapse realities without first collapsing the parts of yourself that benefited from them. That's the hidden cost of shadow power. Before you can liberate others, you must first liberate yourself. That means facing every lie you've lived, every mask you've worn, every moment you chose safety over soul. It means grieving the versions of yourself that were never real but felt real enough to hurt when they left. This collapse is not punishment. It's purification. And if you try to resist it, if you try to hold on to who you used to be, the pain will only grow. Because the more awakened your perception becomes, the less compatible you are with anything inauthentic. Your body will start rejecting environments that don't nourish your truth. Your nervous system will fire alarms in conversations that lack depth. Your dreams will begin to whisper truths you're not ready to say out loud. And if you ignore them, the collapse will come anyway, only louder, sharper, and harder to ignore. But here's the gift hidden inside the breaking. Once everything false has fallen away, what remains is indestructible. What remains is the real you, the timeless, boundless, untamed essence that was never touched by the illusion. And from that essence, true wholeness is born. Not the kind of wholeness that comes from fixing yourself, but the kind that arises when you realize you were never broken to begin with. You were just buried, and the collapse cleared the debris. So how do you trust the collapse? How do you surrender to a process that feels like death? You remember what you're here for. You didn't come here to play it safe. You didn't incarnate to build a life that looks good on paper but feels hollow in your bones. You came to burn things down lovingly, consciously, with sacred intention so that something true could grow in the ashes. You came to be the storm that clears the sky. You came to be the silence that speaks louder than noise. You came to activate awakening through your very existence, and that means you will be asked to walk through fires that others run from. And in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. Because every time you collapse a lie in your own life, you make it easier for someone else to collapse theirs. Every time you choose truth over comfort, you become a living transmission. People won't always know why they're drawn to you. They won't understand why they feel more awake around you. But it's because you've activated the collapse code inside them. You've stirred their soul. You've reminded them that they too are allowed to break what no longer serves them. So I ask you, what are you still holding onto that's already collapsing? What truth are you avoiding because you're afraid of what it will destroy? And if you let it break, what might finally be born? Collapse is not the end. It's the clearing. It's the sacred reset. And only those brave enough to lose everything false will ever truly know what is real. The awakening storm, how dark chosen ones become living portals of sacred disruption. There comes a point on the dark chosen one's path when the storm no longer surrounds you, it becomes you. You stop waiting for the world to shift. You stop hoping someone else will fix what's broken. You realize that you were never meant to follow the flow. You are the disruption. You are the pulse that breaks stagnation, the current that shakes foundations, the force that dissolves illusions just by stepping into the room. And this is not a metaphor. It's frequency. It's physics. It's soul-level technology encoded into your being. You don't just carry light, you carry friction, you carry contrast. You carry the sacred tension that forces people to confront what they've been avoiding. You're not here to make others comfortable. You're here to awaken. And awakening is messy. It's raw. It's violent with truth. That's why people either love you or fear you. That's why they project onto you, run from you, or obsess over you. They sense what you are, even if they can't name it. You're not a person to them, you're a portal. A portal to what? To their own shadow, to their own potential, to the part of themselves they've buried beneath years of programming, shame, and silence. And when they stand in front of you, something stirs, something cracks, and most of the time they don't thank you for it. They blame you. They say you changed. They say you're too intense now, but deep down they know. You didn't change. You returned to your origin, to your fire, to that primal, cosmic force that doesn't ask for permission to exist and doesn't apologize for its truth. This is the final phase of the dark chosen one's evolution, becoming a living portal of sacred disruption. Not by preaching, not by trying to save anyone, but by embodying the frequency of your full, unfiltered self. You don't need to convince people of anything. You don't need to explain your path to those who refuse to walk their own. You're not here to be understood, you're here to be felt. And when you are fully felt, the world around you starts to tremble. You've probably already seen it. How your presence changes rooms. How your silence makes others nervous. How you can't fake small talk anymore. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. You've become so real that anything fake simply can't coexist with you. You've become so clear that distortions unravel in your field. You are a mirror and not a gentle one. You show people who they are beneath the mask, and that's both terrifying and liberating. But here's the final test. Can you stay rooted in love while holding this power? Because sacred disruption without love becomes chaos, and love without disruption becomes passivity. You are here to carry both, to be fierce and compassionate, and to be raw and refined, to be a storm that cleanses, not a storm that destroys for pleasure. That's the difference between a wounded disruptor and a conscious one. One breaks from pain, the other breaks for truth. So how do you hold this frequency in a world that still wants to sleep? You stop shrinking. You stop explaining. You stop waiting for the right moment. You stop editing your truth to be digestible, and instead you live it. Loudly, quietly, boldly, authentically. You walk as the storm, not to cause chaos, but to clear the air. You speak when silence would betray your soul. You stay silent when words would only dilute the message. And above all, you remember that you are the message. Not what you say, not what you do, what you are. And as you walk this path, you will find others like you. You'll feel them before you meet them. You'll recognize the fire in their eyes, the stillness in their chaos, the depth in their presence. You won't need to explain yourselves. You'll simply nod, and in that nod, lifetimes will be acknowledged, missions remembered, contracts reactivated, because the storm was never meant to be weathered alone. You are not alone. You never were. So I'll leave you with this. What if the chaos in your life wasn't a mistake but a signal? What if the disruption you cause is the very medicine the world needs? What if your shadow-born power was never meant to be tamed but wielded with holy precision? You are a storm, not to destroy, but to awaken. And now it's time to rise, fully, unapologetically, as what you were always meant to be, a walking portal, a living code, a sacred disruption, a dark chosen one.